a lot of people, when they first start using video, they get uncomfortable and they get nervous because they really aren't sure how to make a decent looking or sounding video with just a phone. All right, folks, well, we are a couple minutes in. We got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. Jeff is here with me today, but he is, I believe, audio only, so we'll get him involved wherever we can. But we got a lot of good stuff to share with you. So as we get started on today's presentation, I know you're all here to hear about these three strategies, right? These three simple strategies. And what I want to do before we get to those strategies is I want to give you some really basic, fundamental essentials, right? So like I said, this presentation we're sharing with you today is kind of the culmination of the past year and a half of running business video school, teaching people these things, sort of running all these experiments, seeing the different kinds of videos our students are making, and figuring out, you know, what works, what doesn't work, and then what process should somebody work through in order to implement video in their business. So I want to start with some basic fundamental tips here. And the idea behind the first few slides you're going to see in this presentation is this. Number one, all you need is this. All you need is a phone. You do not need any other devices to implement any of the stuff that I'm going to show you today. However, a lot of people, when they first start using video, they get uncomfortable and they get nervous because they really aren't sure how to make a decent looking or sounding video with just a phone. So what we did is we said, okay, there's a lot of things you could try, right? There's a lot of equipment you could buy. There's a lot of techniques you could implement. What are the easiest things that you can do to have the highest quality video without having to overcomplicate things? Because that's what we see a lot of people doing, is buying equipment they don't need yet, looking into software they don't quite need yet, trying to make videos that are way more complex than they actually need to grow their business, instead of just staying simple, staying disciplined, and making video on a consistent basis, right? So let's start there. First thing I want to emphasize is that video is a form of communication, right? I'm going to give you these three strategies later, but the thing that you really have to understand, and if you've been to these presentations before, you've heard me say this before, right? But I say this probably 10, 15, 20 times every single week, because if you understand and accept this, if you understand and accept the idea that video is just a new way we talk to each other, every different platform, every different tactic or tool you can use really ultimately boils down to just simply talking to other people. And so if you accept that, what you'll start to realize is that you're probably trying to do video in a way that's way more complex, way more challenging than it has to be, especially when you're in your earlier stages, right? Because again, if it's just a form of communication, just look for places where you can replace your current communication with a video. And if you think about it that way, you're gonna be making much simpler content, and you're gonna be doing it much more frequently. And that consistency is going to help you learn how to communicate this way. And then ultimately you can try some more complex approaches, right? If you look at somebody who's been using video for 5 years and they built out a YouTube channel or something, or they got tens of thousands of followers on TikTok or whatever it might be, and you try to imitate what they're doing today, it is obviously going to be much more complicated, right? So those three strategies we're going to be showing you, those are going to be extremely, extremely simple. In fact, you might almost look at it and be like, this is really basic stuff, but that's the point, right? You have to do the basic things often enough that they become habits before you try the more complex approaches, right? And again, this is based off of working with hundreds and hundreds of students over the past year and a half and realizing you can get some really significant, meaningful wins from really basic videos, and you just need to do it consistently, all right? So let's go through some of the sort of essentials here. I'm just going to give you a whole bunch of really basic tips as we go. And then obviously, Jeff, I know you talk a lot about hooks, so I do want to get your opinion on a couple ideas for hooks. But let's start with the basics of a video structure. Now, there's obviously other kinds of structures you can use, and this might be sort of a reminder for some of you, but there's really only three parts you need, right? Again, we're focused on really simple stuff: a hook, a body, and a closing. So what does that mean? You gotta grab their attention in the first 3 seconds, all right? In fact, this is, I would say it's probably getting even shorter. If you look at TikTok or Reels, that number, that counter that you see on a video, everybody thinks that those are views. those are actually what are called plays. This is something that's is a pretty big distinction here. So a play is if the video started playing at all. It's not a 3-second view anymore. Now if the video moves at all, that's considered a play on these most recent platforms. And so what that probably means is that now it's not necessarily 3 seconds. Now you're probably looking at 1 to maybe 2 seconds, okay? So always remember that. What are you wearing? What's the face you're making? What exactly are you doing when the video starts? So Jeff, I don't know if you're in a position where you can hear us clearly. I know you're kind of on the go today, but do you want to give us a few ideas on really compelling hooks that you've had success with?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to comment on this. And I'm going to preface this by saying my wife is pulling into the Starbucks drive-thru right now. So if you hear some background noise, that's what that is. I'll order you a latte. So yeah, this is by far and away my most passionate subject. And listen, if you've ever shot a video, how did you start it? Did you start it with, hey guys? Did you start it with, hey, it's Jeff here? Did you start it with something along those lines that just was, just that awkward? You're not sure how to start it. And you have to put a little time into thinking ahead, get your creative juices flowing, and lead with intrigue. Because like Nick said, you only have maybe 3 to 5 seconds. But I can tell you, because I've talked to a lot of people about this, they keep scrolling if they go by and they hear you say, hey guys, okay, you're just one of a million videos. But if you say something that's going to grab their attention right out of the gate, something like, if you're standing in front of a new listing, you should see the blank of this new house or of this house. Or if you lead, it doesn't even have to be verbal. It can be imagery. We actually did a webinar yesterday, and Brendan Kane was talking about that. He said it's so underrated to actually use something like, for example, if you have a house that's, let's just say on a lake, on water, on the ocean, has something that's visually stimulating, lead with that. Lead with something that visually is going to grab their attention, then give a verbal hook, then tell them what you're going to give them. But it's so important to stop starting your videos with, hey guys, happy Thursday, or introducing yourself. In fact, you probably don't even have to introduce yourself. Hell, they're on your page. They already know who you are. And so really put a lot of effort into leading with intrigue.
Yep, absolutely. It's all, basically, if you can't hook them, you're not going to watch the rest of your video, right? So that first couple seconds, super important. I think if you spend, 25 to 50% of the time and effort you're putting into the video on really perfecting that hook, that probably is worth the effort, right? So that's one thing that's really important. Now, keep in mind, same thing applies throughout the video, right? If at any point in the video you get too long-winded or you drone on or you kind of get off topic, you're going to lose people at that point too, right? So in a sense, you almost have to think about hooking people the entire time. Now, once you're in the body of it, at that point, it's just about getting to the point quickly, right? Deliver the points you're trying to make. I recommend having a couple bullet points written down. This goes for any kind of video, right? Some of the stuff we're going to show you later is going to be a little bit about sending videos to just one person at a time. It still matters there, right? You want them to finish the entire message. So get to the point, be concise. And then the closing, this is the only thing I'm gonna say about the closing, only ask for one thing, right? Whatever that one thing is, just one thing, right? Don't tell people to text or call you. Tell them to call you, or on the other hand, tell them to text you. You can tell them to email you, but only pick one. You'll actually get more people to take that action compared to giving them multiple options. You think you'd get a cumulatively higher number there. It's actually not been shown to be the case when they do the research on it, right? So one call to action at the end of the video. So again, we're just giving you some basics here. Next thing I want to mention.
Nick, if I could add, Nick, can I add one thing? When it comes to the body too, and this applies to captions as well, try to figure out a way to tell a story, especially with your realtors. When it comes to, if you've got a listing, and that's what you're going to be doing. You're going to be at an open house. You're going to be at a listing. If you can, try to tell a story about the house or the family that's vacating the house or something that's going to make it compelling and make people, have a warm and fuzzy.
Love it. So let's talk about quality next, right? So quality is a big concern for a lot of people. A lot of people seem to be holding off on utilizing video in their businesses because they don't feel like they like how they look and sound on camera. Or they don't feel like they can produce a video that looks professional enough. Number one, that's overrated, all right? So keep that in mind. Most people they don't even necessarily want to see something with a ton of production quality, right? They want to see something that's real. However, there are some simple things you can do to make sure you're maximizing your quality without ever having to think about it again in the future. One of those things is setting the resolution and the frame rate on your phone. Now, I'm not going to get into a lot of the technicalities of how this all works or what it means, but here's the bottom line. With any video you're recording, you should probably record in the highest possible resolution for your phone as long as you have room for the footage, all right? That's the big concern here. Now, I got a new phone about, I don't know, 8 months ago or so at this point. This phone has 500 gigabytes of storage on it. Now, I did that because I wanted to be able to record, and it's, you know, the top tier phone that Samsung was selling at the time. I wanted to be able to record 4K 60 frame per second footage, right? Now, what does that do for me? Why is that an advantage? Well, number one, it's the clearest possible picture, right? 4K, and actually, technically, my phone will film in 8K. It's sort of like an experimental, even higher level setting, but you can only get 24 frames per second, right? So I just stay with 4K. 4K is plenty. So what it does is it means now I have a lot of detail. I have a lot of quality in the image that I recorded, so I can do more with it. If I want to cut in on that footage later, like maybe you were standing in front of a house and you go back and you look at the footage and you go, you know what, I'm kind of small in the picture. It'd be nice if it was a little bit more closed in on me so they could see me. It's going to make the video a little bit more engaging, whatever it might be. If you shot in 4K, you can crop in, right? You can remove some of the outside of that image and still have a lot of detail because you have so many pixels to work with, right? So that's the advantage of having a higher quality image, is that there's more to work with, and even if you just keep it and you don't crop in on it, it's going to be a clearer picture than if you recorded at a lower setting, right? That's one consideration. The other thing is your frames per second. And so if you're looking at your phone, and I would recommend you do this while we're talking about it, right? Get your phone out, open up your camera app, play around with the settings, and find where you can change your resolution and your frame rate. It's different in different kinds of phones, right? And what you want to look for is, what is it currently set to, right? What kind of quality are you currently recording in? And then what are your other options? Now, you'll see at the bottom of the slide here, 24 frames per second, that's actually what most movies are shot in, right? So it has a very cinematic feel. 30 frames per second is most television shows. So again, there's actually some difference there, right? Both of those settings are fine, but what does 60 frames per second do for you? You can slow your footage down later and it does not look jittery. So you can actually go back and create slow motion videos from your video content. So for me, the reason I like to shoot in 4K and 60 frames per second at all times is that later I can crop in on those pictures and I can create slow motion videos with the existing footage. If you don't have 60 frames per second to work with, you can't slow the footage down nearly as much, right? It's going to start to look really choppy and it's not going to be as easy to watch. So that being said, the one big caveat here is 4K and 60 frames per second is a massive video file, all right? I already have, I was looking at my phone earlier, I have like 250 gigabytes worth of video files on my phone, and that's counting me deleting a fair number of them, right? Most phones don't even have that much storage on them at this point in time. So keep that in mind. Now, I will give you one solution, and that is if you have Google Photos, or maybe Apple Photos does something similar, you can actually back up your photos and videos to the cloud and then delete them from your device. In fact, it's really simple in Google Photos. Once they're uploaded to the cloud, there's literally a button that just says clear space on your phone. You click it, it goes through and deletes everything that's already been uploaded. And the other benefit of using a tool like that is that you can now download those photos and videos on any other device really easily because they're stored in the cloud, right? That's one workaround. So if you have a smaller storage on your phone and you feel like you're filling space up really quickly by shooting in higher quality, then just use a tool like that, back everything up, delete it off, and you should never be in trouble or run out of space, right? Other option is obviously to just get a phone with 500 gigabytes of storage on it and you should be fine there, right? So if you do that, you set your stuff to 4K and you set it to 60 frames. If your phone does 60 frames a second, it'll probably say FPS, and in some cases it might just say, 4K 60. That means 4K 60 frames per second, right? So again, every phone's a little different. I can't go into each one today, but that's what you're looking for. What that's gonna mean is now anytime you shoot a video, you're going to get a very high quality, very clean and clear and crisp video, and that's obviously gonna just make you feel that much more confident about what you're making, right? So that's one sort of simple thing you can do. Let's talk about a couple other considerations here, right? Stuff that comes up pretty frequently. A big question we get a lot of times, and something that seems to hold people back when it comes to making their videos, is which orientation? Should I shoot landscape or should I shoot portrait, right? What does that mean? Should I shoot with my phone horizontal or should I hold my phone vertically when I'm making videos? This is the only thing you really have to think about when you're answering that question is, where is the video going to be distributed, right? How am I going to be using it? Am I putting this on YouTube? Am I putting it on Facebook? Is it going to be emailed to people? And then that's going to determine the format, right? Now, what I will tell you is that we're heading very much in the direction of portrait video. If we talked 3-4 years ago, and we were doing video back then too, most stuff was landscape. We were starting to see portrait video. We were seeing a lot of Instagram. You know, obviously Instagram is kind of was moving in the direction of more vertical video, but YouTube was horizontal. Facebook, you know, the horizontal landscape videos were pretty common. That's what people expected, right? Now, as every year people consume more and more video content on their phones, this is where things are going, right? You always want to make sure you're following the trends. Trend is portrait. That's the direction we're heading. So if you're not sure, shoot in portrait. The other alternative, sort of the hybrid of these two, is to actually shoot your videos in square. So you can do that. There's actually, in my phone, I can set up to record the video in the first place as a square video, or you can just record something, make sure the piece that you want to have as a square is right in the center of the video, and crop it out later, right? Square video is gonna look pretty good in a lot of different places, but I will say, you know, we're heading in the direction of portrait. You look at TikTok, it's all portrait video, right? You look at Reels, portrait video. You're looking at YouTube Shorts, it's all heading in that direction. And so that's the one I would suggest that you lean toward. Unless I know for sure I'm putting this on YouTube, which is still pretty predominantly landscape, or if they're gonna be watching it on their computer. So maybe if you have an older audience, if your audience is 50 and older, you may wanna keep that in mind, is that it might make more sense to do the videos as horizontal, right? Question in the chat was, will we be receiving these slides? So we do not share the slides during these presentations, but there will be a recording available. It'll be on the LabCoatAgents YouTube page or channel, sorry, in just a few days. And it usually is also live streamed on Facebook. So you can find a recording of the presentation there if you need it. Oh, sorry, I went too many slides there. Next one, this one comes up a lot, is where should I be in the video, right? This should be simple, but a lot of people seem to mess it up. Keep yourself in the top half of the frame. Your head, just as you can see in my video right now while I'm presenting, your head should be basically in the top half of that video frame. You don't necessarily want the video to be just your head, right? So you can see, especially if you're doing a selfie video, sometimes it can be just your face. You know, that's sometimes a little too close to the camera, but that's better than being in the bottom half of the video. I don't know why we see a lot of this, especially with people that are first getting started making videos. They'll sort of intentionally cut off most of their body and it's sort of just their head. And then there's a whole bunch of space above it. Well, the reason that's a problem is that what you're doing with video, what video is accomplishing for you that no other form of communication is even capable of accomplishing, is it's making it feel like the person who's watching the video is sitting there in front of you, right? So when they see you on camera, part of their brain, actually most of their brain, sort of, and this is the subconscious part, right? Or we call it non-conscious now. The non-conscious part of your mind thinks they're talking to someone. I mean, I'm not getting into psychology today, but that's what happens, right? There's a whole part of our brain that recognizes human faces. And so if you put yourself in a weird spot in the video, it disrupts that from happening, right? It makes it less likely the person watching the video is gonna have that sense that they're talking to you face to face, right? So when you frame yourself with your head in that top half and you let people see some of your body, especially if it's a portrait style video, right? You're gonna wanna make sure you get some of your torso in that shot. It feels more like face to face, and it's going to resonate a lot better with the recipient, all right? So simple stuff, you just gotta remember, keep my head in the top half. The last thing I'll mention on framing is just try not to cut off the top of your head, all right? Now, truth be told, you lose a little bit, maybe just the top of your hair or something, not a huge deal, especially with the kinds of videos and the strategies we're talking about today, which are really simple things, but you do wanna keep that in mind. Give yourself a little space at the top half of the frame, you'll be good to go. Next one is light. Now this one is simple. This one should not be a problem for you once you understand the rule. The rule is this. You gotta pay attention to the direction the light is coming from. All right, that is all that really matters. Now you'll see the pictures here. If you've ever been on another one of our presentations, you may have seen these pictures before, right? What these are is I'm standing here in both of these pictures in the exact same room. In the first picture, I'm standing underneath a fan, overhead fan with a couple lights, right? The exact sort of setup you would see in most homes across the country. Now, what I have in that case is I have those lights turned on. And you would think, okay, well, lights like that, they're meant to illuminate a room, and what's the problem, right? The problem is the direction that they're shining from. The lights are shining from above me, right? And so you can see it casts shadows. Shadows are your enemy when it comes to making videos, and for that matter, when it comes to taking photos of yourself, right? The same basic premise here. So the problem is the light shining in probably the worst possible direction. I mean, maybe worse would be underneath, right? You can see, imagine like somebody at a campfire telling a scary story, shining a flashlight up underneath themselves, and all the weird shadows that creates. That's why it feels spooky, right? So maybe that would be even worse, although that just never happens, right? So second worst is the light is over you. That's kind of really bad in terms of shadowing, right? Now the best version is the light is in front of you. In fact, the camera and the light should basically be pointing from the same direction. Now, obviously, if you have a light you're using to light yourself up, it can't quite be in the same spot as the camera, or it's going to block the camera, but putting your light source somewhere near the camera is going to work really well. So what did I do in the second picture? Did I have, several fancy lights, and no, all I did was I stood in front of a window. And I turned off the lights, right? So the first one, I'm standing underneath an overhead light. The second one, I'm standing in front of a window. There are no lights on in the room, and look how much better it looks. And in fact, that's an overcast day. It wasn't even that sunny. There was clouds outside, right? But I went and I opened up the blinds, I held my phone in front of the window, and I took a picture, right? That is all I did. So what does that mean for you? It means you don't need equipment, you just need natural light, right? Now, sometimes it might be overcast. That's actually a good thing. That creates a nice, soft, ambient light. Actually, sometimes you don't want direct sunlight. If it's shining straight through the window, that probably is a little bit too bright, right? So indirect sunlight is ideal. You don't need any equipment. And if you're in a room with a couple windows, I actually have a couple windows in this room right here. I usually, I have a light and everything all, fancy stuff, right? But those windows are usually open. It's just sort of natural light. It's filtering in, and I'm facing the windows, and it tends to make me look pretty good, right? That's all you got to worry about. You don't really need to invest in any equipment in order to look good in your videos. And then audio, this is another easy, simple thing you can do. All I'm going to say about audio is just make sure the microphone is close to your mouth, all right? Have the phone, if you're doing, a lot of what we're talking about today is like literally just selfie style video type stuff. If you're doing this and the phone's a couple feet away from your face, you're probably fine. You're gonna get pretty good audio. Where people start to run into trouble, and this is the thing that gets overlooked a little bit, right? People tend to get really obsessed about how they look, and they don't necessarily, we'll get the comment, oh, I don't like how my voice sounds, but they don't really, most folks don't think too much about the quality of the audio. That has nothing to do with how your voice sounds, right? The way you hear your voice on a recording that's just how you sound, right? We hear our own voices different inside of our heads than anybody else does. So when you hear a recording, it sounds different than what you're used to, right? But that's it. That's how your voice sounds. What you should be concerned with are things like background noise, right? Is it easy to hear what you're saying, or is there any background sound? Is there, is there a loud fan on in the room that's maybe creating, a humming noise? Is there kids in the other room that are shouting and you can hear it on your recording, or a dog barking, right? That kind of stuff can be really distracting, and that's the sort of things you want to be looking out for. The other thing is your voice really echoey? And that can be a problem when the phone's too far away, or when the room is all hard surfaces, right? So if you're in a hardwood floor room, you're gonna get some echo. Your voice is gonna bounce off the floor, it's gonna bounce off the walls, and you're gonna pick that echo up, right? So listen for those things. Don't worry about how your voice sounds. It's gonna sound the way it does. Think about how the person watching the video is gonna experience it, and then ask yourself, would this be improved by moving closer to the camera? Or can I maybe use my headphones and plug those in? It's not the most flattering look, but you can wear it with maybe one hanging out of your ear, and then the microphone inside the headphones is going to pick up your audio. You can also pay and buy a lapel microphone, right? But again, we're not looking to do anything that's anything beyond just having a phone. So just make sure you're close enough to it, and then consider the environment, right? If you're in a room that's really echoey, just move into another room, and you should be good to go. All right, I was gonna check the chat here because I did think I saw another question pop up. Let me check real quick. Oh, I think Jeff already responded, so thank you, Jeff. And then I thought I saw somebody, it said that someone raised their hand. So if you do have a question, just make sure you put it in the chat or the Q&A. Either one is fair game, and we'll make sure to respond to it there. All right, now we're gonna get into actually, what do we do ourselves? How do we make these videos as compelling as possible? Because this is another area where when it comes to just consistently making simple video content, which is what all these strategies are ultimately about, a lot of people struggle with this, right? They'll make something, they'll watch it back, and then they'll go remake it, and they'll watch it back and they'll go remake it, and they'll keep doing this because they don't like how it turned out. And the reason that they tend to do that is because they just didn't think about what they needed to do to be compelling on camera, right? And what does that mean? You want to be somebody that kind of comes across as not uncomfortable, right? That's really what it comes down to, is somebody that's confident, that feels comfortable on camera, that's sort of enjoying themselves. Even if you're not, you can make it seem that way, because that's exactly the kind of person we want to interact with, right? If I was going to have a face-to-face conversation with somebody, I'm going to want to make sure that, they're a friendly person, that they're going to be, nice to me when I talk to them, right? So you want to come across that same way in your videos. Now, you don't have to be super high energy if you're not a high energy person in normal situations, right? You don't have to fake anything, but you do need to come across as comfortable, right? So there's a few things you can do here that are gonna make this a lot easier. Number one is just to plan and practice, all right? I cannot emphasize this enough. Have a plan, maybe a full script if you want to go that route. If you do want to go that route, I highly recommend the app Big View. I'm actually going to go ahead and type that out in the chat here. So BIGVU. Actually, I think that was just the panelists. Let me make sure I send that to everyone. BIGV, I misspelled it. It's hard to do this at the same time you're presenting. There we go, Big View, all right? Big View is great. You basically can just take your script, throw it into there, and then read it back into the camera. Here's what I will tell you. If you're gonna go fully scripted, practice a lot. You're gonna have to feel even if you're reading the script, practice it enough that you're not, that you're only being reminded of the words by the script. You're not reading them necessarily word for word as they scroll, because that's what makes you sound scripted, right? Is that sort of robotic focus on just simply trying to read the words instead of focusing on everything else you have here listed on the screen. All right, let's see. I had another question come in. I think we're good there. Just thanks for that. All right. So practicing is really important. Right now, what I recommend is an outline. I don't necessarily like having a full script for most of the stuff you're going to do. I don't think you need it. So at least have a few bullet points, and don't worry about having them next to the camera or sitting there in front of you. That's totally fine. You can do that kind of stuff. Nobody's going to hold it against you if you have to look down at your notes or something like that as you go, right? Now, a few more things that are going to be important to being compelling on camera. I do want to acknowledge real quick, I saw a question in the chat about how do you make the video small enough to text or email. We are going to get into that later, so good question, but I will come back to it. Few more things on being compelling. This next one is huge. Smile at the beginning and the end of your video, even if it's weird and uncomfortable, because it will be weird and uncomfortable the first few times you do it. But it makes a huge difference. In fact, we've done hundreds of videos in a studio, right? A very sort of formal setup. We've made lots of videos, lots of agents over the years. And this is the #1 piece of advice we've ever given to any of them, right? Is just to smile at the beginning and the end of your video, because it's going to make you feel more friendly, and it's going to give you a nice start, super important. That hook's really important, and a nice end, right? The last thing you want is for somebody to watch your entire video and then see you at the end frowning like you were pissed off for even doing it in the first place, right? That's not going to be a good thing. The next is going to be voice inflection. You can hear me doing it throughout this presentation, all right? This is an easy thing to do, but it's very easy to overlook. The way to work on your voice inflection is to practice it just like anything else, right? I'm actually going to show you a couple things. Let me make those double check. Yep, I got that slide there, so I'll show you that in just a second. But really, it's all about just creating variety, right? Change the volume, say some words louder than others, right? Pull back at sometimes, lean in more at other times, right? Change your inflection, change, how the speed, right? How fast you're saying words. All of that variety is going to keep people engaged, right? It's all about keeping their attention throughout your content, even if it's short, right? So this stuff matters. Even if you're doing a 15-second TikTok, you still got to work on being compelling. And then body language. This one's a big one too. All I'm really going to say here with body language, and this is the most important, this is the most common question we get about body language, is what do I do with my hands, right? I've had countless numbers of people come into a studio or come into a video shoot and say, should I sit on my hands? And I'm always like, why? What would you do that? Like, have you ever done that in person? Why would you sit on your hands? Because they're worried they're going to use their hands too much on camera. Use your hands the same way you use them when you talk to people, right? I don't want you to go and do more of it than you normally would, but there's nothing to be afraid of there. It's completely natural. You'll see all kinds of other people do it. You're just paying more attention to it than anyone else will because you're self-conscious, and that's totally normal, all right? So don't worry about, using your hands, get them engaged. I think it's a great way to get the audience engaged. And remember, that's going to make you more compelling, right? Because now there's movement. Now there's something going on in the video. What I will tell you about using your hands is keep them here. Keep them in, I think it's called the speaker box, right? So when you're speaking, presenting to people, you want to keep your hands inside your shoulders. You don't want to go too far outside because look what happens when I do, right? In a video, they literally get cut off. You can't even see them anymore. You're not going to be able to, it's not much use to you if your hands are out of the actual shot, right? But in the same sense, when you focus, keep your hands in the middle, you keep people focused on you and your face and your body. When you throw them out to the side, you tend to get them to look in that direction, and that distracts them from you, right? So it's that simple. Keep them in the middle, and you'll be good to go. Now, what I want to do next is I want to do a little bit of an exercise, right? And one of my favorite things about presenting through Zoom is that all of us are probably alone right now, okay? Now, maybe you're sitting in an office, a couple other people around, you don't have to do it if that's the case. But that means that we can do things and practice things that we probably wouldn't be able to if we were all sitting in the same room. So what I want you to do is I actually want you to try this. I want you to read these different sentences, maybe pick one, and try to practice your inflection, right? So let me read the first sentence, and I'm going to read it doing none of the things that I just told you, all right? So maybe I'll sit on my hands for a second here, right? So let me read the first one. In this video, I'll share 3 easy time management tips that will change the way you do business. Not very exciting, right? So let's try it again. And again, follow along at home or wherever you are. In this video, I'll share 3 easy time management tips that will change the way you do business, right? Very different sentences, same words, very different sentences, very different meaning even, right? I mean, that's a person that you're going to be a lot more likely to believe, right? If somebody has 3 easy time management tips and they believe in those tips, you should probably hear some enthusiasm, right? If they come up and they deliver it in a monotone, what are you going to care about those 3 tips, right? It's not going to matter to you in that case. So that's a great example. And I don't know, I'm talking about myself. So I thought that was an okay example at least, right? But, it's an example of the difference that the inflection can make, the facial expressions, the body language, right? It all comes into play. Now that second sentence there, I hope it doesn't rain again today. That's a really fun one. I'm not going to read it a whole bunch of different times, but that's an example of a sentence where when you change the inflection, when you change the emphasis on different words throughout the sentence, because English is such a confusing language, it literally changes the meaning of the sentence, right? So if I say, I hope it doesn't rain again today, that focuses on me, right? It sounds like, I'm trying to make a distinction about like, well, I hope it doesn't rain. Maybe somebody else does hope it rains, right? That could be an interpretation. You could say, I hope it doesn't rain again today, right? Now by emphasizing the word hope, you're changing the meaning of the sentence, right? I hope it doesn't rain again today. I hope it does. I hope it doesn't rain again today, right? Again, I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can get the point, right? The way your voice is delivered, the body language you use, the facial expressions, all of it is part of communicating, and that's the advantage of video right there. That is the whole point to use using video is that now I can deliver all these extra layers of meaning. I can have a better conversation with the person watching that content. I guarantee that someone listening to and watching your video and hearing your voice and all that inflection you're adding versus reading the same words in a printed form, sending an email that says everything you said in the video word for word, but it's just in print, the meanings will be totally different, right? And this is one area. This isn't a marketing tactic, but think about this, right? Think about customer service using video. I'm sure that we've all been there. We've all sent someone a text or we sent someone an email and they misinterpreted what we meant, right? They took something as being mean or they read something in a mean tone of voice and they responded aggressively, right? Those kinds of situations happen because it's print, right? People read print in whatever state of mind they're currently in. If we use our voice and our face and our body language to communicate more effectively, we're going to get a better result, right? So think about that the next time you're dealing with customer service is please try to use video for customer service and you'll get better results, all right? So that's kind of the culmination. I'm going to move now on to the strategies. And I think Jeff just popped off. Hopefully he can join us again in a minute here because I'd love to get his input on a few of these. But when you're first getting started, here's what really matters is practice your video out loud 3 times, all right? So when you're first getting started, get on there, record yourself, watch it back. It will be uncomfortable, but every single time you watch yourself make a video, you're going to get more used to it and you're going to get more confident and more comfortable. And so that's part of the process, right? But do a few iterations of every single video you're making and you will get it down. All right. So all right, that's phase 1. Now we're going to get into the strategies. Now I wanted to start with some fundamentals, right? Because it's important to understand that this stuff, as long as you follow those fundamentals, you're going to have a good video. You're going to have a video that's compelling, that's interesting. It doesn't have to have a bunch of editing, right? It doesn't need to be shot with a fancy camera. You don't need lighting. You don't need microphones. None of that really matters. What matters is that you're compelling on camera, that you have a worthwhile message, that you're hooking people at the beginning, and you're delivering some value, right? So as long as you do that, these 3 strategies now that we're going to get into will work exceptionally well for you, all right? Now I do see, again, there's some, it looks like we got one person raising their hand, which is totally fine, no problem there, but we can't turn your microphone on or anything like that. So if you do want to communicate with us or ask us a question, just make sure that you're putting it in the chat. So anyway, just wanted to mention that one last time. All right, now here's the 3 strategies, all right? And you've probably already started to read them. Number 1 is one-to-one video messages to your sphere of influence. Very, very simple, probably the most impactful thing we've seen our students ever do. Of all the things they can do, YouTube channels, Facebook, TikTok, all that stuff, one-to-one video messages to their sphere has the largest ROI in the shortest amount of time, all right? It is simple stuff. People are overcomplicating this. Number 2, lead conversion videos, all right? Now this only qualifies for those of you that are doing lead gen, right? So if you don't have any source of leads coming in, then converting those leads isn't gonna be super important, but there's some really, really simple things you can do with lead conversion because guess what? When those leads come in, those people don't know you. They don't care about you yet, right? So no wonder we only typically convert 0.5% or 1% of those leads. There's no relationship there, right? They're probably on a bunch of other people's email lists too. Why do they care about you? They will care about you after seeing enough of your videos, right? So we'll talk about that. And then the third one is just video stories on social media. I know this is one that Jeff does a killer job of, so I definitely want to get his input on that one for sure. But that is an incredible way to stay in front of people. But guess what? Stories disappear after 24 hours. No one expects your stories to be professional. They don't expect them to come across as super polished, super fancy videos. They are going to be willing to see some stuff that's a lower quality, which means you can crank videos out all day, in and out, put them on your stories and not worry about them being super fancy, all right? So let's break these down a little bit, each one at a time, because I do want to get into that question from earlier about how do you send your video messages through email or text, okay? So here's the thing. Let me tell you a story. Finally get a chance to tell you a decent story. I want to talk about Carla for a second. So Carla's one of our students. She's been in our school for, I think, about 6 months at this point. When Carla first joined, she'd made a few videos, so she wasn't a total newbie to it. but she was really looking for, what strategy can I employ here? What's something that I can do on a regular basis that's going to get me business results from video? And so Carla took our very first course. We've got 8 different courses, cover a whole bunch of different topics. She took the first course, which is all about video fundamentals, and then guess what? Video messaging. And I'll tell you what, when we started the school a year and a half ago, our first course did not cover video messaging. Once we experimented and we saw all these different students and everything they were doing, we realized, you know what? Video messaging is the easiest form of video you can start with, but somehow it's also incredibly impactful. And most business owners are skipping over it. They're going straight for the fancy stuff. They're going straight for the YouTube videos or video ads, and they're missing out on all this potential business by not first learning to do video messages. So we built that into our course. And so Carla takes the course, and of course, she immediately starts sending video messages. Now, not everybody does that, right? She was proactive and she took action immediately. Carla sent 75 video messages over a 2-day period. She landed 7 listing appointments from 75 video messages, right? She ended up doing 6 of those listing appointments over the next 2 weeks. And last I checked, she had gotten 2 for sure listings from those messages, all right? You know how long it took her to send 75 video messages to people she already knew in her sphere of influence? About 2 hours, all right? 2 hours of sending some text messages, some videos, that's it. 2 listings from that, all right? Now, it's not going to work that way for everyone. These are not guaranteed results, right? But she was stoked. She's doing this stuff on a consistent basis because it simply works. Now, let's talk for just a brief second about why it works. And I'll tell you what, there's 2 basic reasons. Number one, video is a better form of communication. So when someone sees a video of you, they're having more of a conversation. It's more meaningful and it's going to stick with them, all right? Number 2 is it's novel. We don't get a lot of video messages right now. So when we do, we actually watch them, all right? That's a big difference, is that when we're getting something that's a new experience, it's interesting. You could send someone a video message today that just says, hey, are you thinking about selling your house? Reach out and let me know if you are, and you'll probably get some positive responses to that because a lot of people will watch it, even though it's completely promotional, right? They're gonna watch it because it's new, it's different, it's not something they're seeing very often. The first reason is going to stay, right? It's a better form of communication. That's not going to change. So you're going to find when you video message people, you tend to get better results than when you don't. But the second one is going to fade out over time. In another 3 years, people will be very used to getting video messages and they're not going to open them at the same rate they do today. So do this starting now. Carla's message was promotional. What she said was basically, hey, there's a shortage of houses. It's kind of like the toilet paper shortage we had last summer. We have some customers, they're looking to buy and they need a house. Will you be their hero? And are you thinking about selling your home, or do you know someone who's thinking about selling your home? Reach back out, right? Now, that's not the whole thing word for word, but that gives you just a basic gist of what she said, right? Very promotional. She had a smart hook. She had the toilet paper. She was holding it when the video started. So she's doing some, like I said, that's why we went over the fundamentals first, right? Because you do got to employ that stuff when you're making your videos. But that was it. It wasn't anything complicated. She shot it with a phone. She didn't have anything sort of fancy behind her necessarily. That was it, right? So keep this stuff simple. Now, if you don't want to start with the promotional stuff, the easiest place to start is birthday messages, right? Go through your sphere. When it's somebody, reach out. Hey, Mike, happy birthday. It's good to see you. I hope you're having a great day. Go out and enjoy yourself. I'll talk to you soon. 6 seconds, right? It's this incredibly short message. You're going to practice making videos. You're going to touch a whole bunch of people in a really positive way. And guess what? They're going to remember the video messages they got months later. And I'm not kidding. I've done this and I've had people mention the messages to me 2 or 3 months later when they saw me because they remember this kind of communication, all right? Try it out. It's going to work really well for you. Now, question that we got earlier was, how do I make sure these files will be able to be sent through text or email, which is a great point, right? Well, first of all, you don't necessarily have to do them that way. If you're connected to somebody on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn Messenger, LinkedIn, all 3 of those platforms have a messenger app or a messenger feature in their app on your phone that will allow you to record and send a video message. You can record it through the app, you can hit send, it's over in their inbox, and you're done. If you want to send it through text or email, you're going to need a third-party tool. Now, Real Estate Nexus is a company that we partner a lot with. They have an entire suite of real estate marketing tools, one of which is video, emails, and texts. In that case, you don't have to worry about compression. They take care of it for you. You just record your message, you drop it in, and you send it out, and you can do text blasts, you can do individual texts, and you can also do emails, right? It's very slick. One that I like to use personally is BombBomb. BombBomb's great. You can send the videos both through email or text. It's going to work in both cases. The one thing BombBomb doesn't necessarily help you with is mass texting. So if you ever wanted to make a single video and send it to a lot of people, it's not as great for that. If you want to do that by text. If you want to do that by email, it is very good for that, right? So BombBomb's one, Dub and Co-Video are others. And what that does is it takes your video, at least in BombBomb's case, it takes your video, it puts it on their website, and then it creates a preview, right? A little couple seconds of the first few seconds of the video, and that plays over and over again. And when they get that text or they get that email, they're going to see that message, right? So before we move on, Jeff, I wanted to get your opinion here. I mean, are there any other kinds of messages? I know your team does a ton with video messaging. Is there anything we're missing here in terms of strategies or kinds of messages that people should be sending?
I think you've pretty much got it covered. I mean, I think we could beat a dead horse on this one, but I think really the biggest point that I would say to get across, and I have guys that do this, is they really just replace video messaging for almost anything that you can put in a text. And so I don't think there's any limit as to what you can't replace with a video message. And it just makes you more authentic and more real. And you're going to connect much, much better with your customers.
Great point. Absolutely. So let's get a couple more in here. We got 2 more strategies to get through. Next one is honestly, it's probably in terms of what we're doing here, the simplest, just in terms of the strategy itself. And it's just to put videos of yourself in front of your leads, right? Now, here's what happens. When somebody registers on a website, or they go on Zillow and they sign up and then it gets sent to you, or they go on your website, or they click on a Facebook ad, whatever it is, 99% of the time, they're probably not going to have much of a relationship with you. Now, if you're super savvy, you've been showing those people videos of yourself already, and then they convert into a lead. And in that case, they are, a much higher quality lead. But at least today, most people are still generating cold leads, and then they have to convert them, right? So all you do is you stay in front of them and you come from contribution, right? Offer them something of value, right? Set up a list of upcoming open houses for them. Offer them a free CMA. My favorite is talk about their community, right? Wherever it is they live. Show them, some of the most popular restaurants in town. Go out and interview the local principal of the school, whatever it is, right? Give them something of value. And then in my experience, there's a few different ways that you can do this automatically, which I love, right? Now, one is that you can work with a tool like Whitley, for instance, right? Whitley is a software tool that's going to help you. I think they'll help you generate the leads and convert the leads, right? But what they're going to do is they're going to allow you to create Facebook audiences that will put videos of you in front of your leads automatically. So a lead comes in, automatically they start seeing videos of you on Facebook, right? And think about sort of how organic and natural that feels for that person, right? They go to your website, they sign up. The next couple weeks, they see a few videos from you highlighting something in the community, offering some value, being super friendly, right? It doesn't matter if these are fancy videos. They should, in most cases, be shot with just a phone like we went over today. And what's going to happen is they're going to get to know you, right? They're going to build that relationship. They're going to get to have that experience of having that face-to-face conversation. And it's going to make them more likely to answer your phone calls, texts, or emails, right? It doesn't mean you don't keep doing the normal follow-up, but you're going to find more people answering their phones. You're going to find more people returning your phone calls. You're going to find more people responding to your text messages, right? So that's one way to do it. Another is to use video email. That's another of my favorites, right? You can set up an automation in BombBomb or in one of these other tools. As the lead comes in, it's going to automatically trigger those messages, and those are going to get distributed to your leads, right? So again, keep it simple, shoot stuff with just your phone, especially when you're first getting started, and then give 7 to 10 total touches, right? 7 to 10 different videos of yourself over I would say 2 to 4 week period. And at that point, you should have a pretty decent relationship with the person. Now, keep in mind, this isn't going to change their buying cycle, right? This doesn't mean that people that were looking to buy a house a year from now are going to all of a sudden buy a house next week, right? That's one of the Achilles heels of lead gen gen is that a lot of times people get a bunch of leads and they think, okay, I should have a bunch of business next month as a result of this. And when they don't, they stop doing the lead gen, right? Because most of the people that signed up were actually 6 or 12 months or even 18 or 24 months away from actually selling or buying a house, right? That part's not necessarily going to change, but you will convert more of the leads when they're ready, because once they're ready to work with you, right? They've been watching you, they've been following you, they have a relationship with you. They're not going to necessarily go to a competitor unless that competitor is doing the same things and they're doing it better than you are, right? So this stuff will happen more and more. So if that's the bad side of all this, right? Is if you're currently doing lead gen and you're not using video and you continue dragging your feet and not using video to convert the leads, it will start to hurt you when your competitors do. Right? So keep that in mind. This is a tool that anyone can use. It is a first mover advantage. So if you get started on it now, you're going to get better results than your competitors, right? So I think this is a little sort of a step beyond. That was the automation. I kind of already talked about that side of it. The other version of this is to send personalized video messages. And I will say that if you send personalized, if you don't automate it, or maybe you automate it, but you also send a couple immediate follow-up messages to that person and you use their name and maybe take it a step further and even sort of write their name on a whiteboard and hold that up on your video so they can see it. That kind of stuff has a significant impact and you'll get even more of the leads converted. The downside is it is a lot of work, right? You're going to have to make a new introduction video every single time you get a lead. You can't always get to it right away. So I personally like to combine them, right? A little bit of automation, give people a few things kind of right off the bat, and then also send them something personalized when you get the opportunity. Okay, so brings us to our third and final strategy. And this is one, Jeff, I really want you to talk on this before I even get started here, because I know you do a lot of stories, right? Like you really, ascribe to the consistency here. So tell us about like, what's the value of stories and why are you so focused on it?
Well, first and foremost, it is the look at the position of it on the platforms. It's at the very top, which tells you the importance of where the platform positions it in their platform. So if they're telling you that we're putting this at the very top, they're basically telling you use it because we'll show you and you'll be seen. And so my position is, which is exactly what you put on here, is to try to do 5 to 7 stories a day. And the premise behind that is that I want my little bubble at the top there to show up on as many people of my audience's feed as often as possible. It's just that constant reminder. And then I use it as a forum to just be super authentic. My story is like my like a reality TV show. It is exactly what it is for me, and it allows my audience to really get to know us. And I can't find my story today. Actually, my most recent story where I'm talking with two things hanging out of her nose because she was what were you doing? Waxing her nose hair. It's a good thing she's sitting here. I could ask her what she's doing. And she looked like a walrus. And so I just grabbed my camera and, she yells at me because she's like, stop, don't video this. But she's used to it. And so she knows exactly what I'm going to do. But
Uh-oh. I think we may have lost Jeff there.
Audience. And did we lose me?
For about 5 seconds.
Did you lose me?
Now. You're good now.
Am I back? All right, sorry. Well, you get the point. I mean, the moral of the story is there's nothing that you really can't share. You're just letting your audience into what's happening in your life, and it draws you closer.
So here's a few examples of that. We got a few of Jeff's on here, and then just like a 6-second video that I did for a story that was just me at an antique shop. And Jeff's right. I mean, the stories in a lot of ways, they're so low pressure and they keep you top of mind, right? They keep you in front of people. And what a lot of us do is we overcomplicate our marketing. We make things way more complicated than they have to be. The fundamental truth, the fundamental reality of marketing is all you need to do is show up consistently in front of your ideal customers, right? In front of the people who you want to hire you. And that's it. You just keep showing up. And guess what? exposure. It's literally, it's called the familiarity principle, all right? I love this fact. When people see you on a consistent basis, they automatically start to like you because we're a tribe-based species, right? We're a communal species. So when we see someone frequently, our brains start to assume that person is part of our small group tribe, right? They start to assume that's someone I can trust. I see them all the time. They must be part of that immediate circle that I need to respect and trust, right? So we can't help it. If we just show up in front of people on a regular basis, they will start to know, like, and trust us, and you will get more business from that audience, right? So that's it. Now, those three strategies, you're probably thinking, that all sounds really simple, right? That's the point, okay? If you, and that we hopefully clarified that in the name of this presentation today, but they are supposed to be simple. The problem is, as humans, we tend to look for complexity. We tend to want to say there must be something out there that's just, it's complex enough that other people don't know how to do it. So I'm going to go learn to do it and I'm going to implement it. And the truth is, you just need to keep showing up, right? This stuff isn't hard, but most people don't do it on a regular basis. And that's where you can win, right? You show up, you do it consistently, and you're going to get results. And so my example of something like this, where we wanted to create something so that people could do to put themselves in front of a large audience, and this is the last thing I want to end on here today, is we decided, what's one of the most impactful videos you can ever make? A fundraising video for your favorite nonprofit, right? It's an incredible thing to do for all the reasons we talked about today. Number one, it's going to be an incredibly valuable video. It's going to raise money for an organization you care about. It's also going to put you in front of your community in a very positive light, right? It's going to be something nobody's going to get mad at you for sharing a video raising money for a good cause. The last part of it is guess what's a lot easier to do when you're focused on raising money for your favorite nonprofit? You're going to be compelling, right? You're going to be comfortable. You're going to be confident on camera because you're not promoting yourself. And because of the familiarity principle and because of everything we've been talking about, the way video impacts people's brains, when they see this video of you doing something valuable in your community, supporting an organization that you and probably they care about too, you're going to look a lot better in their eyes, right? So it's also both a good way to raise money for a nonprofit and a great way to grow your business and generate attention for yourself, right? So what we're going to do is, as we wrap this up, I'm going to put a link in the chat. I put it in there just a second ago. But we are doing a challenge which starts on Monday, August 23rd. It runs for 3 weeks. During that challenge, everyone who's participating is going to make a video for their favorite nonprofit, all right? We're going to show you everything you need to do. So if you're not already a member of Business Video School, this is open to you. It is free. It's the first time we've ever done that before. We may have to put a cap on how many people we can accept because there's only so many people we can handle here, and we're getting a lot of signups. I think we've had 20 people sign up just today alone. So if you do want to get registered for this, I would do it right now. We're going to show you everything. We're going to have several different sessions. All of it will be recorded if you miss any of them. We're going to show you, using just your phone, how to make a compelling, interesting, exciting fundraising video for your favorite nonprofit. We're going to have one partner. We're working with Habitat for Humanity here in St. Louis. And so if you want to just use them, if you're not sure of an organization you want to support, they'd be happy to be your organization, and we'll provide you some assets to make that video. But if you have a nonprofit you're a big supporter of, you're going to make your video for them. We're going to get it out there on social media. We're going to raise a bunch of money for those organizations. Our goal is to raise at least $50,000 for a bunch of organizations across the country. I have a feeling we're going to do a lot more than that, knowing the kind of networks that a few of you have. So I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. What I want you to do is click the link in the chat right now. Go get yourself signed up, all right? Like I said, it's free. It's going to be a 3-week challenge. It ends on September 13th. And the last thing I'll mention is that if you've ever been curious about Business Video School, or if you're feeling like, it'd be nice if I could get some additional training, if you liked today's presentation, you want more of this kind of content, we're also giving you access to a lot of our best trainings for that duration, right? So during the challenge, and you'll actually get access to it as soon as you sign up. So the earlier you do it, the longer you have access, right? So get yourself registered. You're going to see a bunch of our best trainings accessible in the library as soon as you register. You're going to go through this challenge. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to split up into teams. It's a team-based, contest that goes on. And the team that has the most people complete their video by the deadline is also going to win some really cool prizes, all right? So get yourself registered. I'm happy to answer any questions that might remain. I think we got about a minute or two. Actually, I just had my 4 o'clock notice chime off there. But if you do have a question, I don't think we have a webinar right after this. I'd be happy to answer 1 or 2 more. Let me know in the chat. But otherwise, click on that link in the chat right now. Get yourself registered for the challenge, and we'll see you in about a week and a half. All right? So I'll hang around for a few more seconds. I'll check the chat, see if there's anything else. A couple people saying thank you. So Rick, thanks for being here. Kelly, thanks for being here. Patty, yeah, I saw your question. How much should I be spending on a lapel mic? Very little. If you're gonna get, when you first start, what I would look for is a lapel mic for your phone model, right? A lot of these phones don't have headphone jacks on them anymore, so you might want one that plugs directly into the phone. So just look that up. $20 is probably enough. You know, 30 bucks is okay if you want to spend a little bit more. You can spend hundreds of dollars, right? So you can go way up from there. But I would recommend start with something simple, something cheap, and you can always upgrade later, right? Is my backdrop wallpaper or a screen? So my backdrop is actually a light with shiplap. So that's like shiplap, you know, so the pieces of wood you hang in your house. And then I'll just move a little bit there. You can see my light there, right? So that's my setup. I have a little colored LED light, about $100 or so, I think 80 even on Amazon. The beauty of that is that you can add different colors, right? So I can change the color depending on what I'm doing. It adds a little bit of dynamism to the video, and that's what I got. But I also have, and you can't see it in the video, obviously, I have a backdrop system. I've got 3 different colors, one of which is a green screen that I can lower. So if I want, I can do a virtual background using green screen, which makes it look much, much better. And that's another option I have, right? So this is higher level stuff. You don't need that at all, but it is a lot of fun. And as you get more accustomed to making video, you know, you might decide I want to put some of the stuff in, or I want to upgrade a little bit. And you know, that's always a lot of fun when you get to that point. Cool. So Jake mentioned, oh, great. So it's going to be available on the YouTube channel later today. So if you're watching live and you want the recording, check out YouTube. All right, I think that's all the questions I see. If you're still here and you have not yet jumped over to that link, do so immediately because we are going to be ending this in about 15 seconds. I'd love to have you all join me for the nonprofit video challenge. A great way to get yourself to make a compelling video, get some practice in, and get a lot of attention just for a great cause and for yourself, all right? So check it out. Join us if you get the opportunity. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here. We are going to be here again next week. We might be here the week after. I'm not quite sure on that yet, but we do have a great presentation for you next week. Thanks for joining me. I'll talk to you soon.